It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, we are Red Eye Radio. Good morning. Welcome to the Friday show. And I guess today officially begins the Thanksgiving travel.
Yeah, I saw yesterday. I live in a school zone. It's actually we're a few houses down and across the street where 3 of my 4 went to elementary. It's hard to believe. And I saw yesterday they were getting out early, and I think they're out today. It may be a teacher work day, but a lot of people basically have getting out early today maybe or whatever, but they're starting that travel today. It will be crazy. If you're headed north out of the Metroplex, our area, just anecdotally over the years, you're going to see the northbound. Now, it always is on a Friday. The outbound traffic is always, bad. But today it will likely start a bit earlier. And that's some of the people getting out of town early.
Yeah, my schools have off all of next week, but they're in today. But the travel portion of it, where I think, what do they say, 2.9? No, it's going to be more than that. It's whatever they believe they may have 2.9 million. Because I think the highest travel day for airplanes is 2.8. That was June of this year, June 30th, I believe. Okay. And they believe they may break that one of the days coming up here. So, and a
total of 29.9 million.
Yeah. So,
and then by car, they said by roads it's somewhere, I think 55 million. That's, if you think about it, you're getting to roughly half of the households that are traveling, which stands to reason. If you're going to see somebody, that other person isn't traveling.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah.
So that's 29 million in the air over 11 days.
Yeah, right.
So they're expecting, anywhere between,
And I'm sure there won't be one problem.
2.4 and 2.8. Well, I told you yesterday that up in New York, where I'm going on Tuesday night, because we're here for Monday and Tuesday show of next week. But so Tuesday night I'm on a plane. And they may get some nasty weather now. And the temperatures now, now it's dipped below zero. So, and they're talking about the possibility of some lake effect snow off Lake Erie. So, so here we go. It's winter time.
Yeah.
But I got nothing to be thankful for anyway. I'm not grateful or thankful for a darn thing.
Yeah, just get it over with, would you? Let's just get this behind us.
Yeah, let's get it over.
I got things to do.
I got to visit family. I don't want to visit family.
Yeah.
If everybody else is just negative about it, why is my life the way that it is?
I've
got nothing to be thankful for.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I wonder if that exists somewhere. I just thought about that. Has anybody written the op-ed piece? There's nothing to be thankful for this Thanksgiving.
When you find people that are going through something that is, tremendously difficult, that's when you most often find the most grace and the most gratitude. And I would hope most people are thankful, but you do wonder, how much we truly appreciate things as a society. I mean, with the craziness that we have right now, we talk about people's mentality every single day. If you don't have a true appreciation, if you're not thoughtful in that appreciation every day, then I could see where you're not a grateful person. I could see where that turns into.
I just went to Google.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a book. It's Thanksgiving, but I have nothing to be thankful for.
There you go.
There's a book.
Right. Yeah.
And then another one, when there's nothing to be thankful for. How can one be thankful when I feel there's nothing to be thankful for? Chicago sometimes, nothing to give thanks on this Thanksgiving, A Cynic's View from 2018. I said, nothing to be thankful for on this Thanksgiving from 2013. Psychology Today, when you don't feel thankful on Thanksgiving. The Daily Mind 2020, being grateful when there seems to be nothing to be thankful for. Wow.
I can't imagine. That can't be a good place to live, that kind of mindset.
No, it can't be. No, it can't. Look, there's challenges and problems all the time. You know how I know that? It's my job to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just, I don't know how, because to me it feels instinctual to be thankful, appreciative. And I don't know. Maybe it is more so the older you get, the more things you go through. Again, the people that are going through the worst of things tend to be the most graceful and the ones with the most gratitude. And I look at things, that I look back on it and think, oh my gosh, it could be so much worse. My end is always to, when I go through those moments of, reflecting on everything, I tend to say, all right, and of the things that are a concern, how much is in my control? And those are the things I need to myself grab the reins on and move forward on. And the other things I can pray about and that are not in my control and then move on from them and not let them be a worry. I mean, look, you could sit and idle time will bring some very destructive things to the mind, or you could improve your life. You can do things and start with appreciating where you are and what you have available to you.
Well, and this does all relate to the essay that we had talked about earlier. The young woman that wrote the essay that she's got to work 9 to 5 and she just can't handle it. She's graduated from college just this spring, probably in May, worked a couple of months 9 to 5, and it just shouldn't be this way. Human beings shouldn't have to go through this. And you look at it, you just say, wow, what a horrible perspective of life. Where do you get that from? And I think about it, I really haven't changed. Even as somebody who was young, I mean, maybe I've changed since a child, but even as a teenager, even when I was in my 20s, even when I wasn't doing what I wanted to do, when I was a machinist and things like that, I still remember that the shift that I worked, and it was when I worked at the steel plant. And for some reason, I don't know, but it was, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and then it was Christmas Eve one time at that same plant. It might have been the same year. But I just remember walking from my machine, and it was a huge plant that I worked in. I mean, they've got overhead cranes. There's probably like 15 different buildings, overhead cranes that would bring the parts to your machine and all this. And it was completely quiet. You didn't even hear number one, when you walked in, you'd always hear the radios. You hear the machines, right, the backgrounds of the machines, and you hear the radio. And it was nothing. I was one of the last people there. And I just remember walking out and clocking out one time on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and and Christmas Eve. And it was just so quiet. And to me, I always look back at it. Those are moments you don't think you're going to remember for the rest of your life, but I have. And when I look at it, this is like 42 years ago and it's such a clear moment in my mind, and it was a spiritual moment. It really was. Yeah. It was just the quietness, and it was like, okay, Thanksgiving's coming, and then it's Christmas Eve, and it was just so. And when I walked out, I remember walking in, clocking out, walking into the locker room, changing, and then walking out, and just a security guard there, light snow falling. And it was an extremely spiritual moment. And I was very grateful for everything that I had in my life. And so that's one thing I'm happy about, that I always was in the moment. That's one thing I could, if I'm sitting on my deathbed someday, I can look back and go, I was grateful for every moment. I really appreciate it. I don't have any regrets. Did I do wrong? Did I do things wrong? Yeah. Did I own up to them? Eventually, yeah. I became an adult. My parents might have looked at it and goes, "It took you too long to get there." But yeah, but I look back and say, I was always grateful and lived, in that moment, and I was always appreciative. I knew when I was young and they always say that that the death of someone close to you can have positive impacts.
Yeah.
And my cousin, who I was very close to the year before he died at 17 of leukemia. Mm-hmm. And we got very close the last year. Mm-hmm. We weren't as close until he got sick. And the last year we got really close and had many conversations. Then when I was, I would have been 32 years old, I had my old radio partner die. And he died of testicular cancer, and that was horrible. But both of them made me appreciate life. Death made me appreciate life. And then when I got to be 42 years old, I had another best friend die, and that's the friend that I talk about that died of a drug overdose. Mm-hmm. He's the one that got into coke and took a hit of crack and was at work and died because of it. And I had to stop hanging out with him, but we were close at one time. But I still have his funeral card that's laminated, and it's him holding his two daughters.
Yeah.
And I go by and I look at it, and I shake my head because of the waste of it, and that his two daughters didn't have a father. But then I also realize how precious life is and how easy it can be taken away from the people that I know that it's been taken away from. And I realize how blessed I am at that point. And that's just on a basic level. That's got nothing to do with career. That has nothing to do with anything except I'm alive and have had so many life experiences that in itself is enough to be grateful for.
Yeah.
The career, anything, the career, anything else that I ever did in my life, yes, it can add to it, but I'm happy with just that portion of it.
Right.
That I lived and was relatively healthy, my entire life, as to now, because I know how horrible it is when you get sick.
Yeah,
how it changes your mental attitude and everything else. Mm-hmm. So I view just life being healthy as this incredible gift to be grateful for before you get to anything else.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad. I don't know where I got that attitude from. I don't know. My parents would probably say just be grateful for life, but how much did I really pay attention to my parents when they would tell me something when I was young? Mm-hmm. And so that is something that I could look at just on that basic level. And then you look at everything else. I mean, I talk about, now just going above and beyond that, having my dad alive, having my parents. Think about this, having my parents alive until I was at retirement age. Mm-hmm. My mom was alive until I reached retirement age. Mm-hmm. How many people does that happen to? Mm-hmm. It doesn't. And so you look at that and you just go, I have to, appreciate the gifts that I have. And so when I see that woman, I feel sorry for her. I actually do. I mean, I actually have some compassion because where do you get that? That's taught for somebody to say, my life sucks because I have to work 9 to 5. And
it's also lack of conditioning because if you look at a generation, I don't know how many generations now, where I don't know what's going on. I don't know what her home life was like when she was a child, but you look at now where we are with public schools and universities. Mm-hmm. And basically, you're a victim. We're going to teach you to be a victim, and you're a victim for a different reason every day. And you're going to get full credit just for being here, for being you. You're going to get full credit. You should just essentially, be rewarded with a lifetime participation trophy. And what lacks is the conditioning that you should have, the proper conditioning that says you're going to lose. Yeah. And you're going to lose a lot until you learn how to win. And a young Michael Jordan was taught that. He wasn't a great basketball player when he was a kid. And then he is arguably one of the greatest of all time. Some will tell you the greatest of all time. Those are the things that where you want to excel in life, you're going to have to learn to lose.
You can look at
dealing with a loss.
Look at Seinfeld, the rejection letter, and then the letter of the analysis of the first pilot.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and this is the worst.
And if you knew how many comedians went through that, how many stand-up comedians over the years that have done pilots, they get development deals that are, you get $500,000 these days for a development deal. Mitch Hedberg got a development deal.
And talked about the fact that Jason Alexander and Michael Richards just weren't funny.
Right. Yeah.
And so he framed it, because
right.
That's what, and it was like, but he just went through life. We just continue doing it. We just continue doing it. We're not going to give up until they kick us out. We're just going to keep going.
It's that time of year to talk about the movie Die Hard. Alan Rickman.
Yeah.
A scathing review by the studio execs that were on the set while the movie was being made, wanted him removed from the movie. One of the greatest bad guys of all time.
No, you're right.
And, those are the things there's going to be a ton of rejection. And what this young person is dealing with, that's nothing compared to what's going to come her way that everybody deals with throughout their lifetime, and it's part of growing up and being an adult.
After they had worked out the pilot for Married with Children,
mm-hmm.
the executives told Ed O'Neill,
mm-hmm.
we've got the woman, but you're not the right guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
Is there anybody that you could imagine that could have played that role of a man who just had given up on life, just given up, had that attitude, nothing's going to get better, but still strived every day?
It would have been cheesy. It wouldn't have been what it became.
Nope. I can't imagine
iconic.
Anybody else playing that role, and they completely and totally rejected him. But then it was the producers. I can't think of their name,
mm-hmm.
Moye and the other guy that said, "No, we're sticking with him."
Right.
And the response was, "It's your funeral."
Right. Yeah. And here we are.
Yeah. 866-90 Red Eye.
This morning's USDA Farm Report is brought to you by Howes Products. Tested, trusted, guaranteed since 1920.
The number of cattle, especially heifers, being sent to slaughter or to feedlots has continued to increase over the last few months, and one analyst says, of course,
higher cow slaughter and higher placements now, it just means that even further down the line, it's going to continue to tighten up supplies.
So much so that for 2024, USDA Outlook Board Chairman Mark Jekanowski says,
what we are expecting to see for the coming year is a fairly sharp reduction year over year in beef production, so down about 1 billion pounds.
Or about a 4% decline in production at 25.8 billion pounds. And that, of course, is likely to bring on what Mark calls
really very historically high steer prices.
USDA currently projecting steer prices next year to average almost $185 a hundredweight. That would be up 4% from the already high prices we've been seeing this year. Consumer beef prices are already running about 9% higher than a year ago. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
This report brought to you by Cenex Fuels and Lubes.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Coming up fine the bottom of the hour, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game going back to Atlanta. Wait a minute. I thought it was Jim Crow. Well, never mind. Let's move on to the next thing. We're not going to pay attention to that. It'll be
bubble of today.
Will be interesting to see whether you have any response from Democrats today on that.
I was thinking there would be some yesterday, when the story broke, but I didn't see any.
Yep. Also, you see that New York judge lifts the Trump gag order. I'm looking at this civil trial. What's this going to do because the judge already said he's guilty, so I believe the judge is going to find him guilty.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, what penalty they're going to have for him.
Right. How's that?
I just wonder how this is going to do on appeal.
Yeah.
I just think there's so many openings for appeal that Trump has on this.
Yep.
Call in and get a word in edgewise. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So going through a bunch of different stories, the New York judge lifts a Trump gag order in the civil fraud trial over free speech concerns. There's really so much here when you look at this. I mean, the judge's statements that he has made. I go back to the even before the trial started, when the judge got wrong. When you had so many in commercial real estate come out and say what the judge said about Mar-a-Lago and what it was worth is insane.
Yeah,
it's not even close. $18
million?
Right. It's not even close. And so you look at that to begin with, and we've always thought that the law, the fraud law, I believe is applied here to Trump. I believe I may be missing something on it, but I believe it may be unconstitutional.
Yeah, I think it could be.
Right.
I mean, it goes back to a Lehman cases where they were, where they cited that precedent, and I think it might be, and also in appeals, as you mentioned before. I don't know how you look at how this judge has behaved, and because it sounds as crazy as some of the stuff we were hearing from Judge Sullivan in the Michael Flynn case. This prejudgment judgment. Basically, you're guilty, and I'll decide what to do about it later. Oh, yeah, now we'll have the whole hearing and the trial. What?
Well, and the judge using the Mar-a-Lago appraisal as evidence of his guilt.
Yeah, well, exactly, and he was so far off on that. You know, you and I have talked about this, but the appraisal process, especially if you talk about a property like Mar-a-Lago, first of all, not only is it celebrity owned, we're talking about the marketplace where what people would be willing to pay. Celebrity owned, president owned property, prime property in Florida. This is not a shack we're talking about. Prime property, 18 million. It's like Donald Trump Jr. tweeted. 18 million, are you kidding me? Well, then in that case, give me 5 of them. Give me 10 of them. Implying that it's probably it could be worth as much as 200 million. You look at some of the houses, or not houses, but properties in that area. And the judge did not do any work when it came to comps. None.
In other news, Major League Baseball going to have move the All-Star game to Atlanta in 2025 following an owners' meeting. Yep. We all know the story behind that.
Yep.
They had it a few years back, in 2020? And was it 2020?
Was it 20
no,
or 21?
21. It was
21, yeah. Okay.
April 21, yeah. And that's right, because nothing took place in 2020. Right. Yeah, so it was April of 21 when they moved it 3 months before the actual All-Star game because of the president and the Democrats screaming and Stacey Abrams screaming that it was Jim Crow 2.0, Jim Crow on steroids.
Yeah, the new election laws in Georgia.
In Georgia, and we said they're absolute liars on that. And we accused them, the president and Stacey Abrams, of being just like any type of hate group leader who would lie about something in order to enrage the races against each other. And that's exactly what they did. And it was reprehensible. It was disgusting what the president did and what Stacey Abrams did at that point that ended up, as it was brought later on, hurt a ton of local black businesses that would have made money.
Yep. Yeah.
And they lied about it in order to create hatred based on a lie.
Right.
Reprehensible. Other news, this is really interesting. One of Canada's most prominent Indigenous icons might not be Indigenous after all, according to new media reports. Buffy Sainte-Marie, who is considered the first indigenous person to win an Oscar, has always claimed to be an Indian born in Canada who was then adopted by an American couple and raised near Boston. The singer-songwriter is known for his her appearance on Sesame Street and was commemorated on a Canadian postage stamp and performed for Queen Elizabeth II. CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Company, conducted an investigation into Sainte-Marie and based on public records and interviews, including with family members of the songwriter. The 82-year-old icon has said that she was born on a reservation in Saskatchewan and adopted as an infant by a white family in Massachusetts, but a birth certificate says she was born Beverly Jean Santa Maria to parents of Italian and English ancestry in the United States. The investigation documented contradictory statements that Sainte-Marie has made about her indigenous past, including articles from early in her career in which she was described as being from different Native groups. But Heidi Sainte-Marie, the daughter of Sainte-Marie's older brother, told CBC that the family didn't believe that she was indigenous. She wasn't born in Canada. She was clearly born in the United States. She's not indigenous or Native American. Nobody ever, except for Buffy, ever talked about Buffy being adopted, she said. CBC said her claim is supported by documents obtained by the news organization, including her birth certificate, which says she was born a white female in Massachusetts to Albert and Winfred Santa Maria in 1941.
Wow. An entire massive career in Canada. All based on a lie.
Apparently, yeah. Wow.
I'm wondering why her family didn't say anything before.
That's a great point. That would be the question I would have. Why was it quiet until now?
Why wouldn't you speak up then?
And who blew the whistle on her now?
From what I gathered in the stories that I read, it was basically her, who is it, her niece, her brother's
daughter? Her niece, yeah.
That.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I couldn't figure out if she went to the CBC or the CBC interviewed her because they got a tip. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I don't know which way it went there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, here we go. New poll out. These are numbers that I don't know. I'm going to have to go back and look. And again, they're polling, and so. But the new Fox News poll, 78% rate the economy negatively.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't ever remember. Maybe it did happen in 2008, 2009. I don't know. But I don't.
You mean the numbers being that high?
Yes, 78% negative numbers for the economy. And the majority say the worst is not over.
Mm-hmm. I believe that the worst is not over because I don't believe that it's clear now that but I've said all along, I don't believe the Fed is serious about getting on top of inflation. And, the entire goal in raising interest rates is to slow the economy down. So if they're doing it right, it means we'll likely go to a recession. And that means it's going to get worse. So I don't think it's over.
You know the problem that he has? Not even independents. Among Democrats, nearly half don't believe the worst is over. And a majority thinks the economy is in bad shape. 59% of Democrats, and most are worried about inflation, 84% of Democrats.
Yeah.
You know what that means? They need to send the president and Karine Jean-Pierre and John Kirby out more, talking about how the economy is great and inflation is actually good. Remember, that was one of their first defenses.
Inflation's great.
Inflation is great.
It means people are spending more money.
Yes.
That's so stupid. But they did it. That's what they said.
Mm-hmm. And I think that was because he was in that had to be like when it started going up, September or October of 21.
Yeah.
Is when we first heard that one. We're like, what? No, inflation's really good. It shows that people are spending more money because inflation's up.
Yeah.
My God, they didn't have a handle on it from the very beginning, did they? If they use that as an excuse.
No.
Like, what? You're really going to go with that, huh?
Well, again, they didn't listen to Lawrence Summers, an Obama advisor, who said, don't pass that one, huge $1.9 trillion package. Don't do that one because that's the one that's really going to catapult us into inflation that we haven't seen in generations. And it did. But it makes me wonder what the mindset is. I mean, I just have to wonder what is in people's minds. Every single day I'm going through this whole, well, what were you thinking? How did you think this was going to happen? What did you think would happen? And when you walk around, in a unicorn world, you just paint whatever picture in your mind. It'll be fine. Everything's going to be fine.
Well, you can give a different opinion. You can sit there and go, well, no, I think the Republicans are exaggerating on the border, right?
Yeah, right.
And I sort of believe Biden's trying his hardest to do it. You can't do that with inflation, can you?
There's no way.
Because you're feeling it every day.
Yeah, there's no way.
You know it.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, no, that's a good point. You can be removed from the border situation,
right?
And say, well, the media's playing it up with what's happening in all the major blue cities and every border town in America, and that. Yeah, but if you're removed from it, you have that plausible deniability factor built in to your side of the argument. You're still going to be defeated probably, but you could still go, it's not that bad. Inflation, and we talked about this with the liberal media. Well, the liberal activist reporter that we talk about all the time, they're having to deal with inflation too. And they're living in major metro areas most often.
Mm-hmm.
So that inflation is compounding on top of the high cost of living in those areas to begin with.
Not all the reporters in the White House press corps are making millions of dollars.
Very few are the stars.
Yeah.
And so they're sitting there and they're having to deal with it.
The members, by the way, the members of Congress are too. The Democrat members of Congress.
Wasn't there a complaint?
They're making what, a little under $200,000 to save a leadership position,
right?
Which you may say is a lot of money, but when you have to have a house in your home district and a house there, as you know, they were even before inflation hit. Remember the stories of them bunking because they were like, that's why we need a raise because we don't have enough money.
Somebody, who was it? Was it Paul Ryan back in the day sleeping in his office or somebody said, and they were like, hey, can't do that.
Yeah.
Don't sleep in your couch.
Somebody was sleeping in their office.
Yeah. But it's enormously expensive inside the Beltway. Enormously expensive.
866-90-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We're talking about inflation, how you can't get away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And, members of Congress that, have slept in their, in their offices.
Right.
before and how expensive it is. They're saying here, Business Insider, again a reference to Business Insider this week. They were the first one that came up on Google when I put in Congress people who sleep in their offices. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, they say does not have a house. They believe he sleeps in his Capitol Hill office. Third in line to the president in order to save money. Yep.
It's always been expensive, but I can't imagine what it's like now with the rent in D.C. My sister and her husband live there, and my brother-in-law makes incredible money. But the rent, they said, was just so expensive.
Yep. 2 lawmakers with nearby offices told Insider this week they believe Johnson sleeps in his office on Capitol Hill.
Third in line.
Yeah.
Grab a blanket, hit the couch. Yeah. Wow.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.